Ask the Podcast Coach for November 14th, 2020.
Let's get ready to podcast.
There it is. It's that music that means it's Saturday morning. It's time for Ask the Podcast Coach, where you get your podcast questions answered live. I'm Dave Jackson from the School of Podcasting.com, and joining me right over there, the one, the only, Jim Cullison from theaverageguy.tv. Jim, how's it going, buddy?
Greetings, Dave. Happy Saturday morning to you. Happy AM, PM confusion day. We had the live stream, I think, set for PM instead of AM, but you guys are smart enough. Like, if you're listening live right now, you're smart enough. You know the deal. You just know, okay, it's going to go live in a second. It was exactly 12 hours. So thank you for being patient with that.
Yeah. And maybe I just need more coffee to wake up.
Hey, by the way, new cup. Look at this.
Wait, hold on. We've got to zoom in on that.
We'll bring this in. Look at that. Because no podcasters have sent me a cup yet. If you email me, Jim at theaverageguy.tv, I too would feature your cup during the coffee pour. But more important than that, Dave, who helps us with the coffee pour?
That would be Mark over at podcastbranding.co. I'm amazed at how well we timed the actual sound effect with the pour.
That's pretty well done.
Very realistic. Mark over at podcastbranding.co. Look, if you want to look professional, I know sometimes people freak out and they're like, oh, I don't want to look stupid. I don't want to sound dumb. I'm like, an easy way to do that is start out the door with a great brand. Podcastbranding.co. Mark can help you with a logo. He can help you with artwork. He can help you with a website. If you need, I don't know, a lead magnet, anything that you want to look professional, Mark is the man. And this isn't some stupid template driven company. Mark sits down with you, understands what your podcast is, listens to your podcast, make sure that everything is going to fit like a glove. And if you want to look good and professional and just be super happy with your logo, then go over to podcastbranding.co and be sure to tell Mark that Dave and Jim sent you. So
I think first of the year, I'm gonna have him do all my stuff.
Actually, I have a call with Brendan from Podpage, and he now has a network version of that. And I was like, now it's on one hand, I think it's $50 a month, but when you throw in Ask the Podcast Coach, podcast review show, best podcasting gear, all of a sudden I'm like, and you multiply those by $12-15, I'm like, and so I need to figure out how that is, but I would then need a logo for the Power of Podcasting Network. I'm like, I might be hitting up Mark for that. So
you still think you still think there's anything in a network? No. I just don't think it's even worth the time, to be honest.
The only reason I have mine is if somebody goes, well, where can I find all your stuff? And I go, oh, all my stuff is at powerofpodcasting.com. If you're looking for my main stuff, schoolofpodcasting.com. But it would be nice. There might be a little cross promotion. You never know.
Podpage, $50 a month or $50 a year?
$50 a month.
Yeah.
That's for unlimited websites.
Right.
Now, this is interesting, of course. This is where somebody goes, didn't you just talk about Mark being, but it's one of those things that it made me think about it. And I was like, So yeah, that'll be the end of Mark's sponsorship. He's like, hey, thanks, Aver, the sponsorship.
No, he's fine. Hopefully we're like I said, I have been milling around and I think I'm going to give him my current, because I don't actually, I had a designer do my logo stuff I don't know, 7 years ago. And it's been great because it's lasted that long. But I lost a bunch of the files. I don't my designer made a custom font for me. So, and I don't have any of those font files. So I can't make anything new. Now I could contact him. I could, but at this point, it's just like, well, I think I'm just going to not start over, but give him hey, here's my current branding. I want to spend some time thinking about how this could be different, but the same. I don't want to leave it because it's colorized and all that other stuff. But how can you create more for me?
That was the cool thing with the School of Podcasting. I said, hey, I really like that font. Like, what was it? And he was like, oh, it's this font, and here's where you can download it. So I forget what, I think it was some Google font, or I don't know, who knows what it was, but it was very cool to make sure that if I wanted to, keep with the brand, Daniel says, Mark designed a logo for something of mine. I can't decide which one to use. That's the problem. They're both good.
They're both really good. It's hard. I think you should spend a little time. Brand is one of those things better not to make a decision like 11:30 at night before you're getting ready to launch something.
Yeah.
You know, give it some time. Make sure you give it some time, think about it, test it, have some other people look at it, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Banks is saying network as a personal brand. Could be. I've seen people do that where they're like everything. It's like I said, everything. If somebody goes, where can I find everything you do? I'm like, oh, and that's why I made that website, because somebody said, I didn't know you had these other podcasts.
Yeah.
And I haven't been dropped. I used to at the very end say, this podcast is brought to you by the Power Podcasting Network, blah, blah. I used to put that in, and I'm like, I'm with you. I'm kind of like,
Yeah. Hey, zero in your camera for me. I think we knocked it off, and you're a little bit there we go. Yeah.
You know what else I'm going to
do? Okay.
Talk about something interesting, Jim.
Here we go. Riveting audio while Dave goes and does something. I am, so I have the averageguy.tv that I have as kind of the network brand, but then I use Home Gadget Geeks Cyber Frontiers on there. But certainly Home Gadget Geeks has the brand. It's got the brand recognition. That's what most people know me as. But Dave, you introduced me here as the averageguy.tv. That's kind of where I land. Do you own DaveJackson.com?
I do not. And that guy has basically threatened a lawsuit if I ask him again. He's like, look, I'm not selling, because there's almost nothing there. And I was like, you don't have a price? Because I don't have big pockets, but I'll think about it. And he was like, look, I'm never going to sell this. Please, you contact me every single year. I'm not going to sell it. And I have, because I had the thing on GoDaddy where would watch it and try to steal it if he forgot, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he was just like, please quit contacting me. So I have davidjackson.org, because that was the only one that,
I did the averageguy.me. You can do .me for a while. And I think I owned, I think I let it go, but maybe not. Jim Collison.me for a while as well. And
well, I know I heard James Cridlin talking about they were going to come out with a .podcast. And I was like, that would be cool if I could get davejackson.podcast.
That makes sense. That actually makes sense. And then if we all move to it, it could get a really strong brand.
Yeah.
But the problem with those, they get expensive.
Yeah. I think I'm going to let go School of Podcasting.fm, because it's like $80 a year and I'm doing nothing with it. Originally I had a streaming radio station on that, and it was like, that's not worth $80. And I was thinking of letting it go. And I was like, I don't know. It's just one of those things where it's like, it's not fun to just light $80 on fire just because it's like, well, that's only, $650 or whatever a month, or, and it's like,
those little charges, especially on your credit card. If you're not like, I just realized I had paid Podomatic. So I did, they offered me, cause I started on Podomatic, right? And so they offered me like, hey, we'll give you a pro for like $9.99 a year for the first year. Yeah. Okay. And then I'll shut it off. Well, in February, I didn't shut it off, and it was $119. And I didn't discover it until yesterday. Like I'm thinking, I should probably watch my credit card a little more closely on some of these. So they can, I think you really got to be careful on what you sign up for and make sure it's a limited credit card or something.
Well, I signed up for Monster Insights. It's this cool plugin, and he has a pro version, but the pro version I think I have like 5 to 10 websites, of which I'm using 2, I think, is like $400 a year. I got a Black Friday sale last year for $159. And I was like, yeah, because it basically pulls in your Google Analytics and makes them very easy to understand what's going on. Mm-hmm. And I saw where it's coming up, I think next week. And I emailed the guy and I'm like, hey, I'm going to cancel and then sign back up when you do another Black Friday sale. Any chance I can just get can we save the hassle of me, And he offered me, I think, a different deal that wasn't quite as good, but wasn't $400. And I was like, so that's one of those where I'm like, So, and that's where I'd sent you a note. I don't know if you saw it. Have you ever clarity.microsoft.com?
No, I haven't. I hadn't heard of him.
Yeah, there's a guy, Adam something. He does a WordPress channel on YouTube, and was showing it. And it's kind of like Google Analytics, where it will show you how long somebody was on your page, but it's free. And it's just one of those where I was like, and that was his whole thing. He's like, hey, if you're looking for analytics on your website and you have no budget, you might want to check that out. And I thought, well, maybe that's what I'll do. I'll still use, because Monster Insights has a free version, which kind of gives you how many, like what's your most popular page and blah, blah, blah. Yeah, I think that's it. Adam Silver. He, I was going to call him the Uncle Fester of WordPress because he's got the old shaved head, but really nice guy. He does a lot of cool. He's a big Elementor guy, and what I like about him, which is what you want from somebody when he does reviews, he says, this is what I like about this. This is really driving me nuts. Like he'll say, this is like my favorite plugin. This is my favorite builder. But I really, and he seems to know everything. But it's another one that I got caught on was SiteGround is another one. Like the first year, it's ridiculously cheap. And then the next year, it's like $30 a month for web hosting. And all of a sudden you get this bill and you're like, wait, what? And when it's a Black Friday deal, it's hitting you in the pocketbook when you're really trying to put some money aside for Santa. And you're like, oh, so that's so check your credit cards. Cause I know, I want to say Dan Miller, the guy that, Story Brand, I signed up for his thing and they came back and charged me $500. And I was like, excuse me. And they're like, oh, you signed up last year. And I'm like, oh, can we not can I undo that?
Yeah. Sometimes you can't, right? I mean, I had both the Android and iPhone app for Spreaker that I bought for the last, 5 years, $99 per platform per year. Not terrible. Was getting zero traction on Amazon. I mean, on Android. So I just canceled it because it was like, this is dumb. Google's doing its thing, and that's just the way to do it anyway.
Right.
And then I think the days of podcast app, I think most people are finding their own podcast app. So having an individualized one. So I went to cancel the iPhone and I'm moving everything to Podpage. So I had been redirecting homegadgetgeeks.com to the Apple app, but now it's going to Podpage. So, but I missed that window and they charged me. And once they on Spreaker, once they do it, it's just like, okay, well, I guess I have it for another year. Canceled the credit card, but canceled the account, those kinds of things. But it is, it is one of those, you get a little, you like a little fee leakage where you're like, it's $100 there and $79 there and $10. I canceled an HP subscription I had for Printer Ink, which was the stupidest thing I ever did. I cannot get that thing to stop. So it's I've got to come up with a better system, especially since I'm down here all the time, to check my credit card once a month, to be like, drop that into Excel, go through it, just make sure everything's legit. Or if I've got some things turned on that I forgot to turn off. Yeah,
it's just one of those things where I just started kind of reusing it. I'd been using it. I use a product. In fact, I'm running over to get a link so I can throw it in the chat room because I get a free month if you sign up, called YNAB. You need a budget is what that stands for. And it's like anything else. If you take the time, because so many times, I see this, for me, this is job security. People sign up at Libsyn, they upload a file and go, why am I not in iTunes? Like, okay, well, obviously you didn't read any of the emails we've sent you. You've watched none of the tutorials. And again, God bless you, job security for me. But I actually went through YNAB and I saw where they had webinars that you could watch. And I didn't want to sign up for a webinar. So I got the name of the webinar and went to their YouTube, because if they're smart, they're repurposing those. And there they were, where I could watch at 2x speed. And I went through like 4 of their webinars, and it's actually a really cool program. And it's the whole, there's savings goals and things like that. But that is one of those things where when you really start watching your money, you're like, wait, I spent how much at McDonald's? Yeah.
Well, let me do my annual PSA. In this case, it's time to start thinking about your taxes. Yeah. So, this fits in because you might want to go through your credit card statements or some of those things where you've been buying stuff. And if you're making money podcasting, I make some money off Patreon, you might be doing some affiliate things. All those are taxable. I'll just talk about the United States. I don't know about around the world, and I'm not a lawyer and this is not tax advice, but, you might want to start going through those statements and start collecting them now. Like start highlighting, what did I buy? What did I buy for the studio? What have I bought that's podcasting related? And as you start getting ready to do your taxes next year, that may help with the tax burden a little bit. So maybe not a good time. The other thing to think about are those annual subscriptions. Okay, so next year, what do I need to prepare for? How do I set up alerts for myself of these things that are coming due, so I can make sure I cancel them if I don't do? I think Daniel said he sets up an alert a couple weeks ahead of time. And that's a great idea. There's lots of great ways now to do that in the calendar apps, whether that be on Google in Google Calendar, or you can have Cortana do that for you on Windows. You can have you can have the A Lady do that for you, or the G device do that for you. So yeah.
I had a thing today or Thursday, as I was sitting there, and all of a sudden at 9:00, the A woman came on and said, "This is a reminder, Emily's birthday." And I was like, "Oh, it's my niece's birthday." I was like, "Excellent."
Yeah, those are super handy.
Yeah, talking about the stats again, kind of the different ways Google Analytics. Daniel says there's Matomo, Matomo, which is very thorough and respects privacy more than Google. So,
well, that's not difficult.
Yeah. Oh, well, that's the interesting thing. Right now I'm wearing a gadget called an Amazon Halo. And it's kind of like the Fitbit. Here's the thing, you always say you should do something different to stand out. There's no face on this. There's one button on the side. And so the whole thing is distraction free. It measures my heart rate. If I turn it on, you want to hear something spooky? I could press this button and have this thing listen to me all day and then tell me, did I sound angry, confused, focused? Like, it'll analyze your tone of voice. And I'm like, that's different. But that's one of those things where I haven't read it, but there's a button in the app. It's like, how secure is my data? Because at one point you're taking pictures of yourself in your skivvies. So it will then make this really weird 3D version of you and tell you you're fat. And that's just one where I was like, not sure how crazy I am about putting pictures of me in my skivvies anywhere, because there's a button you can go in and say, please get that off the cloud. But I'm like, just sending it out there, I'm like, that's just stuff you don't want to see. That's no, sorry. So,
all of a sudden you get really serious about your security. Like at that point, before you're like, if they steal my show notes, it's not a big deal. But if they steal like that one, yeah, Dave, I mean, you want to make sure it's secure, right?
Yeah, Gary says count down the days for almost a year to cancel a Dropbox account that auto-renewed after a free trial. Yeah, that whole free trial thing is, it's fun. I get it. I mean, it works. It gets people in, but it's one of those things where I know there are times. I had one, I forget the name of the product, but the whole thing was, instead of having 8 million Google Chrome tabs open, it was, I forget the name of the product, but it was all, you tied all your Google accounts to this one product then. So it took up less memory and all this other stuff. And I kind of went through it and I was like, can't I just right click and do this? And like, it really, they kind of build it as, this will boost your, and I was like, I can do all this stuff without spending whatever it was. And so when I signed up for that, because I was like, I want to dig a little deeper into this. That was the first thing I did, was like, on this date, remind me, cancel your thing. Because otherwise it was like, and it wasn't huge. It was like $50 a year, but I was kind of like, I'm pretty sure this is crap, but I just want to make sure I don't get dinged with that. So yeah, those are the things, and you will be surprised. Like I said, when you start paying attention, you'll be like,
I picked up 2 gadgets this week. One I'm showing on screen, Dave, if you want to share that. So after our show last week, I picked up an Echo Flex, which is it's just a mini Echo device that you can plug right into the wall. I think you can see here let's see if they got a shot. There's a good shot of it hanging off the wall. So it leaves one plug free, ungrounded too, by the way. Doesn't have the ground switch in it. So you can, if you have old house wiring, this is a good way to get one in there. These would make, if you ever wanted one in your studio, but you didn't want the puck sitting up there, or you're only going to use it to do home automation type transactions with it. It really is good. It just plug it in and it pairs super easy. And then it's got the mute button on it. So if you don't want it listening from time to time, just hit the mute button and turn it off. But it doesn't play music. It doesn't, it's not really designed for that. It's more for you just speaking to it. It fills in that gap where you may not have a device. And I got mine for $9.99. It's $12.99 right now. So it's not a bad way. Although during the Christmas season, there's going to be all kinds of ways to pick these up free with purchases. But the Flex is, if you're looking for a way to get in, or like I said, for a studio, you can plug it in out of the way, and I think it's got 4 or 5 speakers on it. So that was
and they have a thing where you can add an additional like night light to it.
Yeah, I think here's a picture of it. Let's see here with the nightlight. Yeah, there it is. Yeah, there's a picture with the nightlight
like that.
Yep, right up on the bottom. So if you were exactly. If you're gonna do a room plug, or this one is gonna go. I put one in the garage so that I can turn some lights on out when I'm out there, and then we're gonna put one in the TV room as well.
Nice. How does it sound?
It's terrible. So you don't use it for playback. You use it just for, hey, tell me, turn on this light or turn on that light, or what's the temperature of the sun, some of those kinds of things. I think music's disabled on it. I don't think they'll let you play music on these, like the wand, some of the other devices, just because the speakers, it's not designed for that. It's kind of just designed to listen.
Yeah. Because I mean, there are times that I'm like, what's on my schedule? I do hate the fact they changed something on it used to be you could roll over and say, hey, what's her name, what's new, and you did that last week, and she had you pick. There was no way out of this. You had to pick what news channel, and it was all major stuff. It was like CBC, NBC, NBC, Fox, whatever. And so now, and then they added a good morning. So now when you say, hey, what's her name, good morning, she will now play your flash briefing. So I was like, well, that was kind of annoying, but whatever. They're doing. They also have a weird way you can now spy on your parents. This is interesting, where you can go to their whatever app and say, let me know not what she's doing, but let me know when mom makes the A lady do something. So it's a case where all of a sudden, mom wakes up and says, hey, A woman, what's on my schedule today? It will let you know, hey, your mom triggered the A woman. In other words, she's awake. She's okay. And then you can also have it set up like, hey, mom hasn't done anything for like 7 hours. Like, hey, mom's like, I don't know, taking a really long nap. And I was like, that's mildly spooky and slightly, I mean, I get it. It sounds like a great feature, but I'm like, you're kind of spying on people. And
oh, yeah.
But that was the whole thing. It's like, we're not letting you know what they're doing. We're just letting you know that they're doing something.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Here's that device, by the way. It's a little bright, so in my hand. But Daniel did correct me on it. It does have looks like it's got an audio jack if you wanted to plug speakers coming out of it. I guess maybe you could pair Bluetooth to it as well. I don't see why you couldn't. If you wanted to pair a speaker to it in the garage, in my case, a Bluetooth speaker. So little device, like I said, just a 2-plug. So it plugs in. If you have old wiring, these would be pretty good. And then there's that outlet to plug in the nightlight. It's not, I don't believe it's USB. So $12.99 right now. I got mine for $9.99. You might want to watch. Dave, the other thing, and you can go back to you and me. The other thing I bought this week that for podcasters that might be helpful is a little Casa. These are the little Casa automated switches, right? It couldn't be simpler to install, right? I plugged it in, plugged the light into what I wanted. It automatically went into pairing mode. I went to the Casa, which is TP-Link, I think.
Yeah.
And said add, and it found it, and I put it in my phone. I found it on my phone's Wi-Fi attached to it. Set it to the Wi-Fi, which is the hardest part. Set it to the Wi-Fi. I was done. It was ready to go. And I could say to the A lady, or I could say to the Google devices, or I could say, turn on this light, and it turns it on. These had been 3-pack, $21, so $7 each. I see they went up a little bit. They're $35 now, but there's a $7 coupon. So
yeah,
they're $7 to $10.
Yeah. That's, to me, the coolest thing is when you walk in and say, hey, A lady, turn on the tree, and your Christmas tree just goes, it's like,
well, I do that. The studio lights are voice activated, so I can say, hey lady, turn on the studio lights, and they come on. And some people say, well, yeah, that's super lazy, but it comes in handy when you're doing a live podcast and you don't want to get up. You can get your co-host talking, you can mute yourself, then you can start doing voice commands, and it doesn't, for those kinds of things, it's kind of a great way of doing it. So much so, we're so dependent on them here now that when the overhead lights, which is the other light in this room, went out, the switch just stopped working. Unless I bought these to replace it. My wife was like, hey, the overhead light's not working. Like, well, just hit the switch. Like
Yeah.
there's a button. These have buttons on them too, by the way. If you're skeptical, again, the lighting makes this hard to see. There's a switch right here. It's a manual switch. So if you want to go over and turn it off or turn it on, you just click that button right there. So if you're still old school and you need manual control, you can get that done.
When I was going back and forth between my apartment and the house, it was so, you don't realize how much you get hung up on that. And all of a sudden it was like, I remember the one day, what had happened? I had moved my Wi-Fi, like my internet was over here, but I was at the apartment. And so like you go in and you're like, you're just used to like, Alexa, turn on, oh, see, I said the magic word, and I'm like, turn on the living room, and there's just nothing. And I was like, oh, that's right. There's, she's out of control. So she has no control. So anyway, at any rate, so that's,
there's some handy things you can do with it. And listen, if you don't want to do it, don't do it. It's fine. Nobody says you have to, but there's some interesting things you can do just that make life a little bit easier. We mostly do lights. So if somebody, like, I'm not going to put my garage door opener on it. That's just not going to happen. I'm not going to put locks that way. I mean, I do have a pin pad lock, but it's super low speed, not connected to anything. I'm not going to put my door locks. They're available, by the way. You can have Wi-Fi enabled. There's a service now with Amazon where you can, if it's free for Prime, you get a special door opener thing. And when they get there with the package, they can put a one-time code in, open your garage door, put the package in your garage.
I saw that. Closes
it, and they partner with Ring. It'll take a picture of the whole thing. So that's kind of interesting, yet kind of scary. I'm not going to. So for me, let's just say someone hacked my infrastructure on these kinds of things and was able to control my lights. Well, they're going to turn my lights on and off.
Right.
Like, now you have to be concerned. Some of the things on these, you have to be concerned about who makes them and where they come from. And so you might want to be careful about, I'm really careful about who I buy these from because you can get some that are not made or they're made in other places around the world. I'm not going to be specific, although Bangs will probably call in and be specific here in just a few minutes. But there are some places you just want to be careful with what you go with, because you could be these IoT devices, Internet of Things devices, have not always been the safest. So make sure you do your homework on this. I like these TP-Link, this Casa brand. I like a lot. I'm pretty trustworthy of Amazon, although I know I was doing something. I think I said this last week on the show. I was in the car with my daughter and we were talking about that song Blinded by the Light. Did I mention this? And one time I mentioned it right before I was dropping her off. By the way, she had, what is that line? She says to me, what do they say in that song? Right. We can talk about that later. And so I didn't think twice about it. The next morning on my Echo show in the kitchen, it had, do you want to listen to Blinded by the Light?
Yeah, that's spooky.
I was like, okay, well, I know they're listening to me, Dave. I mean, I know they are. So you just have to be careful of that stuff. Use the mute button if you don't like that stuff.
Well, speaking of make things easier, this was from a Facebook group. If you could afford just 1 hour of a virtual assistant to help you each week, and you currently do all aspects of your podcast, creation, production, and marketing yourself, what would you have the assistant do each week? What would help you the most? This is my situation, and I'm trying to decide how to best utilize the 1 hour I can afford. I was like, that's a thinker.
Say that again.
I can afford a virtual assistant for 1 hour.
Oh, okay.
Right now I do everything.
Right.
Should I use my virtual assistant?
I think for most people, it's going to be show notes, just to be honest. That's at least what I hear most people struggle with is how can they speed up their show notes? I have a writer and an editor who does work for me at Gallup, which is just beautiful. In like that, he's my best friend at work because he does things I can't, and he likes doing it. We've talked about this before. So that's I think if I was going to get a virtual assistant and I had 1 hour, find that thing you hate the most and have them do that.
So look what he's saying. She's like, for me, I also want to make sure it's something like, obviously you can't host the show for me. That's right. It's like something that I could do, but so for me, it might be promotion, show notes
research. How about research? Having somebody do some research for you?
That would be great right now, because I'm researching a lot of SEO stuff, and it would be cool to go find me 6 really good free SEO tools and blah blah blah. So
yeah, I want it laid out this way. Well, you know what we wouldn't outsource though, I think, is our awesome supporters. We would never we would never outsource that. And I'm a little thirsty, so maybe a mid-show coffee pour. Are you ready? Hold on. Are you ready for that?
Well, I was until the PowerPoint went on the wrong screen.
Oh.
There we go.
Oh, it just dripped. It just dripped on me.
Oh, wait, hold on. There we go. Much better. And I will share my screen to talk about our awesome supporters. You can find them at askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome. We're talking about awesome people. They give us $20 every month. Like in the Indie, speaking of networks, Indie Drop-In Network. Find them at indiedropin.com, where they connect listeners with amazing independent creators. Carl White at lifeinthecarolinaspodcast.com. Kim Craggy at Toastmasters101.net. If you want to start your Toastmasters journey, check it out. Ed Sullivan at SonicCupcake.com. Do you smile every time you say Sonic Cupcake? I do.
I do. It's a great name. It's a great name.
Shane at Spybrary. And actually, I was talking to Shane. He's going to be coming on the School of Podcasting in the future. And I use his coaster every day. I don't know where he got that, but it works quite well. Michael Delaney over at Baby Mountain Radio Productions, where podcasting and hard work are made fun. Max Trescott at aviationnewstalk.com. Max said this week when that whole thing came out with Spotify buying Megaphone, he's like, that's it. I'm putting Aviation News Talk up for sale. Because, man, there's a lot of money flowing into the space.
There is. That's what's going to be one of my predictions for Ross, is that I think this is the year of mergers and acquisitions.
Yeah. Speaking of money, you can go check out Greg over at debtshepherd.com, where he's teaching financial wellness. Glenn the Geek Hebert over at horseradionetwork.com. Glenn is trying to, he's like, 2020 has sucked, but how can we make it suck more? So our thoughts go out to Glenn. He's had a surgery. Now he's having some minor complications. Things are going to be great, but it just seems like every time you turn around, it's like, got to go get this check, got to get that check. So he's going to be coming on as well, because because of this, his audience, boy, when you go down kind of for the count temporarily, his audience came out of the woodwork. So we also want to give a quick shout out to our $5 bonus folks, people like Corey Finneran at ivenv.com, Chris Holyfield at iamsaltlake.com, Ed Ryan at Podcasting for Dummies, Eric Hunley at unstructuredpod.com, Illiquity at travelglutenfree.me, Jason Bryan at matttalkonline.com, Jason at cuatx.com, Jeremy Dennis at transmissionspodcast.com, some guy named Jim Collison at theaverageguy.tv.
Yeah, that cheap bastard needs to step it up.
Jim Harold at podlords.com. I'll actually be appearing on Podlords in the future. Joe Salsihigh at stackingbenjamins.com, as well as Jay Cleveland Payne at morebettermedia.com, Carrie Bond at keywestperspective.com/podcast, Kim at teachersneedteachers.com, Kim Slusher at distractedlifepodcast.com, Master Cauldron at cauldronscript.com, Matthew at scottishpodcast.com, Michael Ray. Does Michael have a podcast yet? Do we know?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah. But
I don't think so.
I appreciate
heard from him in a long time.
Yeah, I know. It's me. Speaking of Ross Brand at livestreamuniverse.com, Rob over at bedtime.fm, Troy Heinrichs at blacklistexposed.com, Troy Price at frontporchstudios.com. And then again, if you would like to be an awesome supporter, simply go out to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome, or you can also go to profitfromyourpodcast.com and pick up a copy of the book now available. And that is actually one of the things probably next week it's on my list of things like, hey, you need to get going on that audiobook thingy that you keep putting off, because I've come to the conclusion that houses are a lot like kids.
Oh, yeah.
Where they just, A, it's never ending, and B, they always want money.
Mm-hmm.
And so
it's never ending too. It just never, you get one thing done and then the next thing breaks. You're in that spot right now where you're just going to have the next 2 years, you're going to find all the broken things. And so you just got to buckle down and budget for it and know it's coming.
Well, the other thing is I had all these things I kept saying, I will do that after I move. And it's come to my conclusion now that this is not going to stop. You need to just like Tuesday will be house day. And, I will like last night I walked around and took things downstairs and took things that were downstairs and brought them upstairs. I still somewhere in this house is a drawer, a bag, a box of stretchy fitness bands, as well as it's not like a P90X, but it's this thing you hang up on a door and you sit there and pull yourself up and do push-ups in the air and all sorts. It's here somewhere. I don't know where. So, that'll be fun. But yeah, so it's the joys of moving and things of that nature. Liquidy says, who did your book cover? Was your publisher? Yeah, that was actually one of the things I was kind of like, really? That's because I was really thinking when I got my book published, I was like, oh, it's going to be special. They'll have money on it. And, and I was like, wow, it's red with yellow letters.
I think it's smart, though. I think that's smart not to get too fancy with it. It looks good. I think it's a good looking cover.
Yeah.
I think they did a nice job on it. It stands out well. Like I can see it from here. I mean, I think they did simpler is better in this case. And I think they did a nice job on it. I think it's a good call. Sometimes we try to get too fancy. It's like on our websites, we try to get too fancy. And I think flatter and simpler is better than spinning and flashing and some of those kinds of things.
The whole thing was to get it to stick out on a bookshelf. And I was like, well, in that case, it worked. So
do you get reports on that? How do you feel like it's doing?
Not heard a peep. In fact, I need to email them and go, hey, remember how like you're going to pay me the second half of the book after it's published? That would be now. So, I need to do that. They, again, through this whole thing, their communication has not been what I would call stellar. And so it's just one of those things where I'm going, and the other thing I could be, I pray I'm wrong. I don't expect to ever get a royalty check. I think this is going to be very music business-esque. And we paid you up front.
Right.
And then,
you just, the chat room's talking a lot about sponsorships. And of course we've been talking about Glenn a little bit here in his health issues. And Glenn, we're wishing you the very best on that going forward. A king of sponsorships. He is Glenn, those of making sure Dave Garofalo as well, who is just really, really good at kind of turning everything into a sponsorship. Dave, I don't know if I mentioned this last week, but I think I mentioned that I made some advice on the show that I was to take away the bell, and because he would ring a cowbell in the beginning, and so he did, and the audience went nuts. Have I said this story already?
No, because I know you were like, maybe you should put it back.
So I said, I thought I admitted here, I thought that was maybe a mistake. And they were talking about it on the show the other day. We have these going back and forth because they listen to us and I listen to them. And so we have these things going back and forth. And so that now they're like, well, maybe if it's so people are so passionate about it, maybe a sponsor should bring this thing back. Like if you want the cowbell back, it's going to cost you. And we'll put your branding on the cowbell. I mean, it's actually it's brilliant. Like from a marketing perspective, it's absolutely brilliant. He took it away. It caused a lot of emotional turmoil among the listeners. How dare that podcaster guy? Listen, I've gotten run on that show really hard. Like, how dare that podcaster guy? He doesn't even listen to the show. He doesn't know anything. So they have run me. They're trying to run me out of town for taking things away. At this point. But what a great, I mean, they were in our chat room, they were saying, I mentioned this in the show, we could get somebody to sponsor the cup, we could get somebody to sponsor the coffee, just to be honest. We mentioned it, so I think there's all kinds of opportunities if you just want to ask for them. You got to find somebody willing, hey, in this case, if I mention the coffee, would you buy it? Because it's the sponsors looking for people. They don't just want to pay. They want to get something in return, right? Would they buy the coffee? I don't know. Pete's Coffee, Starbucks, probably.
If you think about it, Mark Maron, I've never been there, just coffee.coop though. I remember the website because every time he drinks it, have you ever heard him do this? He'll take a sip of coffee and he'll go, I'll clean it up. He'll go, pow, I just pooped my pants. Just coffee.coop. That's the thing. Oh, and wow. It was like one of his very first sponsors. And so every now and then, if he sips coffee, he'll be like, good coffee. Pow, I just pooped my pants. Every time he drinks, like, well, that's different. I laugh because for a while, Adam Curry on the Daily Source Code was playing with programming people, and he would burp, and then say Senseo because it was the brand of his coffee maker or something like that. And every now and then, if I'm like, I'll do something, I'll be like, brr, I'm like, and there's a part of my brain that goes Senseo.
Yeah.
It's like if there's anything you can label a sound effect or something like that, it's
power in those statements, right? My daughter has listens to a lot, or she had these Vine memes from years ago, and she repeats them all the time. I have this saying when I say "you bet" all the time, like, hey, is it? You bet. I'll say that. And somebody I worked with years ago used to say chocolate sauce because there was a "you bet" chocolate sauce. It's a kosher brand chocolate sauce. Okay. And I'd say "you bet." He'd go chocolate sauce. That became a family saying for a while. And so whenever I would say "you bet," my wife would say chocolate sauce. Those kinds of things on your podcast when they become a thing like that, they become a branding thing. We've already, Mark and his ad for the coffee pour is already established. Even if he doesn't, I shouldn't say it this way, but even if he quits doing it because he was first.
Oh man.
Right.
Every time we go, somebody's going to go, oh, it's time for podcastbranding.co time.
No, right on. There's such power. There's power in the repetition of it. And I think you got to do it and get it right. I think that's one of the things we do that well here. I'm not sure I do it as well on Home Gadget Geeks. And I've been working on the ad spots there to see what I could come up with. You got to do them for longer than a week, and you need to kind of drill them in with some memorable. What did you came up with a saying for Mark that I don't think we've remember you came up
podcastbranding.co, it's the way to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You said that for a couple weeks, then you stopped. That's another good thing that we could be saying a little more frequently, right?
Yeah, it's and you can kind of set those up. I'm starting a new feature on the School of Podcasting just because, and it's not going to be a weekly thing. It's going to be when I find one, but I found, and the fun part is it's not technically legal. But when I find somebody who asks a really good follow-up question, I want to spotlight that because I really think that's the key. And of all people, it's Lars from Metallica, and he's interviewing. You know how there were two guys in Oasis? Everybody, if we could all scratch off, what are they? The 90s, probably Oasis.
Never heard of them.
Really, you never heard of Oasis? Oh, you're my wonder wall. No, okay. 2 days, roll a bit of day. You got a big British accent thing going on. Anyway, it was in
the 90s. I didn't listen to music in the 90s, so that's probably why.
So this guy's talking about how his brother was a total just weenie, and they separated like many brothers do in bands. Hence the Kinks, and he's talking about how he has to play these songs that are huge, and he goes, well, it's very important to the audience, especially in Britain, and Lars goes, but how do you feel about it? And I was like, ooh, that's a good question. And so I've hired Wayne Henderson from Voice. Oh, help me, Jason. What's Wayne's website? You type in Wayne Henderson voiceover, you'll find him. But I hired him to go, ooh, now that's a good question. And that's just going to be I'm just going to pop that in every now and then. And so,
there's the consistency in those things is important, right? That's the doing them over and over and over. And you can't just get sick of it yourself. You have to almost hate it. And then you've done it the right number of times. We would always, I would always highlight HelloFresh at the end of the shows. And when I forgot, people would ask, and then I knew I had done it enough. Like, okay, I needed not enough. I need to continue to do it because it's catching on with good brand. So,
mediavoiceovers.com is Wayne's website. I had to do that. Yeah.
Speaking of good brand, I think somebody asked, how do you join us in here? Ask the podcastcoach.com/join. Usually you have that rolling at the bottom.
I'm going to say, it's shame on me for not pimp that in there, but yeah. Just ask the podcastcoach.com/join. That'll pop you right in.
That'd be great if that had popped up everywhere. Like if you had a thing, like it's here.
Yeah. Here is an interesting question, which I'm always trying to find something. Not that I hate answering what's the best microphone and things like that, but something's a little different. This is from a Facebook group from Michael Hurst. Good morning, everyone. Have a quick question. I recorded an interview with an individual that is living in Shanghai, China. I sent him the link to the episode, and he responded back requesting that I send the audio because, Jim, you want to finish the rest of this sentence?
No, I can't.
Oh, okay. Because without a VPN, none of his network can listen to it in China.
Yeah.
And he said, has anyone ever heard of something like that? Is that normal for China? Is it okay to send? This is the one that I was like, really? Is it okay to send the audio directly? Yeah. Thanks for your help in advance. So I am not an expert on China, but I have heard that they're not the biggest fans of 100% free speech. So I was not surprised to hear that.
I would not send it, and I would not. You lose control. Yeah, you lose control of it. I would not.
Is you're not going to get any stats on that. So if he throws it on something in China, you're not going to get any hits, but you will get exposure. I had a guy this week email me, might do some consulting. He heard me on the Business of Podcasting, which is Charlie Valler's show. And so I was like, well, but you are correct, though. If you put that out, you have no control over that episode. And the only thing you're going to get is exposure. So you better hope you put your website in that audio. Otherwise, nobody's going to find you.
Yeah, I just wouldn't. For my stuff, no. No, I get requests sometimes for the work podcast, like, oh, can we embed can I get the video to embed? I'm like, no, that's what we have YouTube for. So you can embed the YouTube. That way I can continue to track the numbers and I kind of know where it's at. And I can, if I need to shut that video down for some reason, I have the ability to do it. That I think a lot of people don't think about that. Like, okay, so you give that MP3 away. You now can't get it back. Like you can't. If you want to shut it down for some reason, maybe there's something in there that you don't want anymore and you need to pull it back. You can't. It's gone. Now, does that stop them from doing it in your RSS feed? Absolutely not, right? Somebody could come in, download it themselves and take it, but that's not you giving it to them. So I think it's a little different.
Kim says, I've heard about one podcaster who sends his file to a person in China who posts it on a platform. So
yeah, you can, if you go with that strategy and you've got somebody that's doing it, you know where it's going and you know how to get it back. I think, go for it. But,
I just had, here we go. Ken says, for Chinese input, talk to someone at Himalaya. Yeah, that's true. Or Shimalaya or whatever they have. Himalaya is the US version, and then Shamalama Ding Dong, something.
Don't go there. I'm not sure what you're going to say.
And you shut it down on Spotify. That's a good question. Is Spotify in China? That's a good question. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if you can get those. I think they're past. They're not hosting them anymore. So I think if you took your RSS feed offline, I don't know their policies on. I imagine it would stop working on Spotify now, right? They're pass through, right?
They're pass through. Yeah.
So if you take it down, it should take it down from Spotify.
Yeah, but joining us, the one and only, the queen of traveling gluten-free. Good. Liquid, how are you?
Hey, it is like, here, let me show you the outside. Can you see that?
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Yeah, you can keep
the outside is frightful.
Oh, it is like it's super windy and gusty, and we got like 8 inches last night.
Yeah. Wow. Beautiful.
That's
so,
go snowshoeing.
Oh, I actually have snowshoes in my garage, but I don't know how to snowshoe yet because I had to wait till the wind dies down. I don't want to get windburn.
No, drink hot chocolate and coffee and enjoy, and maybe enjoy another coffee pour.
There you go. Do it.
There we go.
Coffee pour. So I got on because I wanted to talk about a really, not really easy, but like a really great way to connect with people that I just found out recently for like daily sponsorships and stuff like that. Yeah. So we all know like no one's doing real live person conferences, but virtual conferences are really big right now. And so what I've been doing is hopping on gluten-free virtual conferences and networking with people, like brands specifically. And I've been getting a lot of positive feedback. And I had like the last time I did it like a week ago, I have like 4 or 5 brands sending me stuff because I tell them, I'm like, hey, if you send me your product, I'll I'll try it first because I don't have any product on my show unless I try it first. And then if it's good, like I have them, I'll have a featured guest on my show. And if they're really good featured guests on my show, then I invite them to my Wednesday, What's New Wednesday live. And so it's kind of like a progression, and it's that for me has been working out super well. So if you know of any virtual conferences in your vertical for your podcast, I would definitely say get on there and network with the brands, because you're not cold calling them. They get to know you. You can like instantly develop a relationship. It's like the best way to get brands on your show.
Yeah. One of the things I am horrible at is if I mention a product in a show, I rarely tweet it to that company, which is so stupid. Why wouldn't they not retweet it if you're saying something nice about them? And there are many times that I'm like, why did I have I ever? Nope, never did. I'm like, wow, there's
an art to it. There's an art to it.
Yeah.
Well, and another way that's really easy to connect with like influencers, especially, but other brands too, is if you're active on Instagram. I actually learned this from Adam Cowbell, who has I think it's like 100 million pound podcast, and at Podfest last year, or earlier this year. And he said to get onto Instagram, and instead of typing them a message, actually there's a little microphone down there, which a lot of people don't know about. If you hit the microphone and send them a voice message, you will get amazing response. Like I was like, no way. And I tried it. It totally works. Like voice messaging people on Instagram. So if you want to connect with influencers or like other brands, voice messaging them on Instagram is like completely amazing.
I know you say that, but I have I'm on every platform in the world. I cannot I have a reaction to Instagram, and I do not know why. I don't.
Is it too girly for you, Jim?
I know. No, but I can't. I've tried engaging a couple times, and I just don't see the point. Now, I know there is one, but I'm just struggling with it. So you mentioned that, and I'm like, oh, I really need to figure out why I have this reaction to Instagram.
Maybe it's because you're just not enough into style and hair and travel. If you were more into those things, you'd probably love it.
Yeah, you're probably right. You're probably right. Yeah. Well, I think that's good advice on any of those platforms, is to reach out. You just got to kind of reach out and try. Just say, hey.
And never think like somebody might because they have a lot of followers, they won't contact you. Because I've contacted people with like 25,000, 30,000 followers, and they're like, yeah, I'll be on your show. It literally doesn't matter how many followers they have. I've had people that had like 30,000 followers on my show and 1,000 followers on my show. So just you just have to jive with their platform and just, somebody who you think would be really fun, look at their whole feed and just check them out. And the people who will resonate with you will message you back, and the people who don't won't. And so just go with the people who message you back and resonate with you. And if they don't, and you've reached out to them 2 or 3 times, then that's just not a person who's going to be on your show no matter what, probably.
Yeah, Dave says, I've not been able to warm up to Instagram. I'm another one. I think I have 4 posts. And it's just one of those things where I'm like, because I watch what other people are doing, and it's like a picture of their lunch. And I'm like, this is like Twitter, early Twitter. And I'm just like, or it's
powerful, Dave, though. It's powerful right now. The engagement on Instagram is nuts.
Especially if you're doing reels. If you're doing reels, I've gotten 300, 400, 500 views on my reels. It's crazy. Yeah.
We just did a big social media push at the office to get our account to 10,000 because you get swipe up. And I was like, seriously? Swipe up. Oh, Jim, that's important. They're trying to tell me that swipe up is important. We need to have it. And I'm like, okay. So I worked for a couple months to get them to the 10,000 mark with our Facebook groups and those folks. But yeah, I was like, swipe up, really? That's all we get? Swipe up. It's important, Jim.
It's the new thing. It's the new thing. Yeah.
Well, you said, if you like the product, you contact them. What if you don't like the product?
That's a great question.
Oh, so if someone reaches out to me and I don't like the product?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I've actually had that happen. So there was some guy who reached out to me, and he's like, oh, we had this whole line of cosmetics, blah, blah, blah. It's he's like, it's all natural food grade, blah, blah, blah. So I'm like, okay, well, send it to me and I'll try it. And so he sends it to me, and it's literally before you even open the bag, I can smell the chemical fragrance. And I'm like, oh, heck no, this is probably not going to work. So I open the bag and look at it. It's just a bunch of chemicals. And he never answered. He never emailed me back saying, how did you like the product? He literally sent me 4 or 5 big things. And I'm like, but if he had emailed me back, I would have said to him, this doesn't fit my brand. A, I can smell the chemicals. B, it's not natural. This is not something I would promote on my podcast because it doesn't fit in with my genre. Yeah. I would just tell them, like, I would just be honest with them, like, this isn't, and be nice. Like, I'm not going to say, hey, your product's a piece of crap, but,
Right.
but yeah, I would just tell them this doesn't fit in with what my brand is. So,
There you
because
go.
everything's not going to fit in with your brand, and there's going to be people who want to be on your podcast because you have a podcast. Because once you tell people you have a podcast, you get like 10 times more interesting to the other person.
Yeah. Mystic asked in the chat room, can you post a podcast on Instagram? Probably one of the easiest ways to do this is if your show is on Spotify, go into Spotify and share it to Instagram, and it will, I believe, put a little player in Liquidy. You were like, oh, I know the answer to this one.
Yeah, so I found the best way to promote my podcast on Instagram is just by putting audiograms on. But just FYI, if you are using a social media scheduler, it has to be under a minute. And I actually did 59 seconds on Buffer, and it's like, no, it's too long. I'm like, no, it's still under a minute. So I do like 50-second audiograms that I post to my social media that you guys can see if you want to hit Travel Gluten Free Podcast on Instagram. And I've got my audiograms, and I actually have them 7 episodes behind, just in case I fall behind on my production. That way I'm not missing a week of audiogram. But audiogram is the best way. It gets decent video views. People watch it, and then they know and then I just put like a little blurb about my podcast underneath the audiogram, and it works pretty well.
There you go.
It's a good idea.
Yeah.
It's a good idea. Liquidy, thanks for jumping in. Always good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Always good to see you. Stay safe. Don't slip on the ice.
Oh, and I need to do a book promo. See, Dave, you need some excitement in your cover. I can give you my I got this for $30 on Fiverr. This book cover is amazing.
Nice.
Yeah, the guide to traveling gluten-free for anybody who's gluten-free. And I actually have a lot of really good information in here about gluten-free restaurants as well. So even if you're not traveling right now and you're eating out, it's a great book to have.
I like it.
Or to give for the holidays.
Do you have a electronic version of it if folks want to buy? Okay.
Yep,
how
in Kindle.
How do they get it? How would I find it?
Oh, so if you go to travelglutenfreepodcast.com and click on book, all the information is right there and you can buy it.
All right. Sounds
there
good.
you go. Awesome.
Sounds good. Thanks, Liquidy.
Guys. Have a good weekend.
Have a good weekend. Yeah, you too. Take care. That's a good promo, by the way. If you want a little bit of how do you do a quick promo on somebody's show, that's a good. She did it really, really well.
Here's the weird thing, and you never know what's going to happen. You plant a seed. You never know, right? So I think I talked about it about a month ago. I was on the radio for 5 minutes talking about podcasts. Did I talk about this? Okay, so there's the Drive Time show, the Alan Cox show. It's your typical bad radio kind of thing. But one Pound Cake is the sidekick. So Pound Cake starting a podcast, and he was going to call it like PMJX whatever. And I called in, and I'm like, hey, I need to tell Pound Cake that's a really bad name for his podcast. So I call in, I'm like, hey, Pound Cake, that's like, you want to make it obvious and blah, blah, blah. And Alan's like, well, do you do a podcast, Dave? And I go, actually, I do the School of Podcasting. And he's like, wow, you teach podcast? I'm like, yeah, schoolofpodcasting.com. So I loved it that he gave me an open door to just promote. And he goes, well, what would you call it? And I'm like, well, my shows are really obvious, like schoolofpodcasting.com, ask the podcast coach, blah, blah, blah. And I go, so the more obvious you can make it, I said, if you have to explain your name, you picked a bad one. And Alan's like, exactly. So for 5 minutes, Yeah. So I love Amazon. So I know that I'm getting something. I think it was when this thing was getting dropped off. And I look at him in my kitchen, and up pulls the Amazon truck. And I go out, and I had a shirt on that said, ask me about my podcast.
Yeah.
And so the Amazon guy goes, hey, what's your podcast? And I go, oh, I do the School of Podcasting. He goes, I heard you on Alan Cox. He goes, you were on a couple weeks ago.
Oh, that's awesome.
And I was like, so you never know. He goes, I'll have to check it out. And he's like, man, I listen to the radio all the time. So how do you put it? It was a joke. He goes, I listen to it all the time, so I'm not left with my own thoughts or something like that, because he drives all day. And I said, dude, you got to check out podcasts. They're so much better than radio. So
nice job. I was in Menards with the International Podcast Day shirt on from, I think I wore it a couple weeks ago, and it was a Saturday. It's just left it on. And the gal is checking out. She goes, do you have your own podcast? Like, I said, what?
Yeah.
Because what did you say? Do you have your own podcast? I was like, yeah. So yeah, it's sometimes I told her a little bit about the averageguy.tv. So yeah, no, super cool. So, hey, speaking of podcasts, we just had Theme Thursday. That's one of our Gallup podcasts. Just crossed that magical, mythical 1 million download mark. So pretty exciting to
There you go.
yeah, to get to that point. I never, I've had the network's gone over 1 million and some other things, but to have a single podcast do 1 million, I haven't had that yet. So pretty cool.
Nice. Well, speaking of that, what is coming up on your show?
Yeah, so Mike Uyghur, my co-host, talks a little bit about hunting tech and some of the mapping and some of the cellular, like that you can now have these cellular cameras that you can put in the areas that you're going to hunt. Pretty cool. And man, the layered mapping that comes now, it's available for hunters to kind of check out areas before you go to make sure you're not on somebody else's land and such.
Oh, nice.
It's pretty amazing. So still working on that. Production will be out later today or tomorrow, theaverageguy.tv.
Nice. On my show, we're going meta. I'm going to talk about a podcast. Well, first of all, I'm going to talk about how, because of my podcast, I got a publisher to write a book that inspired a podcast that talks about the school of podcasting. And then we have a interview with a guy who got to work with a rather large graphic novel company. We'll put it that way.
Nice.
Because of his podcast. So a couple because of my podcast stories. And if you're here live, stick around. The one and only Daniel J. Lewis will be joining us in the post show. And if you want to hear the post show again, go over to askthepodcastcoach.com/awesome and become an awesome supporter. And thanks to
join us live.
Yeah. So stick around, and thanks to the chat room as always. We'll be here next week as always. I don't think we have any conflicts with the holidays, so stick around for some post show. I'll have to ask Daniel. Here he is. Daniel, do you know when you put a marker in the Rodecaster, does it put a marker in the individual tracks as well, or just the stereo mix down?
I think it puts it in the individual tracks.
Okay.
Are you coming in live from like Iraq or something?
Almost. Well, my toddler is running around, so it is a war
Can we get the latest? Can we get the latest on what's going on in the field?
Yeah, I'll ask my field correspondent here. Hello.
No worries.
There.
Nice.
There you go.
Nice.
The one and only noodle baby.
Yeah, a little noodle boy now.
I'm gonna say.
I'm talking through my AirPods Pro, which, being Bluetooth, their quality significantly drops as soon as I join a call.
Yeah,
that's just the nature of Bluetooth.
Yeah, it's actually not bad though for a guest spot. Like, it's acceptable. You're clear. It's a little radio-ish, right? You know, it's or a phone, the old analog phone sound, but it's clear and we can understand you. So it's very acceptable. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I have a question, and I'm not going to bring anything Baines up, even though I look kind of like Baines today. But with the Superstack, so this past week there was this podcast to profit Superstack, and I was a contributor to it and I promoted it. I'm curious, from both you guys and everyone in the chat room, how many people sent you emails about the Superstack? Not how many emails total did you receive, but from how many people were promoting it at the same time?
I'm gonna say 3. It was you, the main dude behind the Superstack, and the SEO guy, Jorgen.
Yeah,
he sent like 1 or 2, so it wasn't a ton, but it was like, oh, here's that thing, and it worked. I mean, I eventually went over and bought it. So, and mainly because for me, I wanted to hear Heather Osgood's course on monetization. It was $49, and her course normally is $99, and then it was just a matter of, and I'll get a whole bunch of other stuff, and so. But and it is a case. The thing, I think I haven't logged in because I used what I will affectionately refer to as my crap email. I have one that's like, feel free to spam the crap out of this. I rarely check it. I'll go over and get my login name and password and save that. So I haven't looked to see how much I've gotten since I've done that. But you do have to sign up for each, which is good. You have to go over and sign up for each individual course, which you then know you're going to be on their email list. So you kind of get to selectively pick who do you want your spam from. But
Yeah, and I noticed that some of the people, like I've been trying to check out as much as I could from the course, even though the promotion is over. While the bundle was running, I was trying to check out everything I could so I could speak to things directly and say, like, this is something really cool about this. And one of the things I noticed is a couple of the people didn't segment their list well. So like after I joined their list, because I got their product from the bundle, shortly after I received an email from them advertising the bundle.
Nice.
So they obviously didn't filter out people who already bought. But one of the things I was thinking about is, like, I heard from someone on my list who said that they were getting too many emails. I know I was sending a lot of emails, especially near the end, because there was a lot I wanted to focus on. But they were complaining that it wasn't just me. It was like 4 or 5 other people. And it made me wonder if, like, this whole idea of joint ventures with a limited time offer, if that's really that good of a model these days, because I feel like in the last like 15 years or so, and I think, tell me what you think about this too, it seems like nowadays people tend to follow several experts on the same topics. Do you get that impression too?
What do you think, Jim?
Yeah, I think so. Although Daniel, it's such a weird thing. Like for some things, I want to zero in on one person and just trust them. And then there's other areas where maybe I'm more undecided and I'm going to follow several. So I don't know. Does that get to the heart of your question?
Yeah, kind of. Like I just kind of think that model of let's get a bunch of joint people to join partners in.
Yeah.
Sorry, I'm stumbling over words. Partner in this together and promote it at the same time. I kind of feel like the audience ends up being overwhelmed because they're following all of these people and they're getting 5 promotions for the same thing from 5 different people.
I don't know if that's bad though. I don't know if that's bad. I mean, I think for some it gets frustrated, but I think for others, it just reminds them. And so I don't think that's such a bad thing. That fine line between just right and overdoing it is so hard to predict.
Yeah.
You just don't know. And what is the right amount for one person is too much for the other. I think you have to kind of trust your instincts on that, take some feedback and kind of figure out, like, is there a feedback mechanism for the team on this to say, hey, did we do the right amount? Are you guys even interested as a group on knowing that? I mean, obviously you are, but do you have any kind of mechanism for the group to know?
I can send, the organizers feedback because I'm a contributor, not just an affiliate.
Right.
But what I've been thinking, and here's a little teaser, is that with some of the frustrations I faced and certain things that I think just aren't good, a good model anymore, I want to put together my own bundle next year and like partner with several others and do certain things that you don't normally see, but that would be much more respectful, ethical, less spammy kind of feeling for some time next year. And I've already got some people interested in it who have said, yes, I want to do it.
Yeah. Well, less spammy is always a good, sometimes we get carried away with all this SEO marketing stuff that people do. Oh, lead magnets and newsletters. And, sometimes we drive that a little too hard and, kind of people just need to come to the product naturally or organically, so to speak. So I listen, I didn't figure, I got a couple emails from you. Would you have sent me 2 or 3? Do you think?
I think I sent 5 in a week. Well,
now I only remember 2 or 3. So if you sent 5, that's not too bad. And I didn't feel like, now Dave went in. I didn't go in. I didn't even check him out. So I was kind of like, oh, I saw Superstack and I was like, I don't have time for this. Like this is going to take me figuring some things out. So I might've been on the other end where the marketing fell short. It just didn't land for me the way it did.
That's half the reason I went in sometimes, is to see how other people like I will buy somebody's course, not because I need, not that makes me sound like, but like I don't really need the content, but I want to see what tools they're using to, deliver their content, how their onboarding process is, things like that. Daniel will be glad to know here. Dave says only DJL gets through my spam filters. I have them dialed up to DEFCON 2. And likewise, Craig is saying it's all about relationships and value. It would take a lot of annoyance for me to unsubscribe from your list. So there you go.
Something else I wanted to talk about is since Jim often mentions Windows updates, I'll mention the Mac OS update. Big Sur was released this week. And so far, it seems to not have problems in the podcasting space. I know Baines mentioned a mouse driver he uses is not yet compatible, but I installed it. So I have 2 Macs now. I installed it on my secondary Mac, and I've tried just some initial processes and opened some apps, did some basic things, not like a full podcast production workflow, but just checking, is anything obviously breaking? And so far, nothing really stands out to me as having problems. And a great app, I'll share my screen to show you this. A great app and resource that I use for this is roaringapps.com, like roaring like a lion would roar. And here's the app that you can run on your Mac that will check all of the apps you have installed on your Mac for you, so you don't have to manually check everyone on the website. And it gives this overview of different Mac OS versions, and based on how users are reporting compatibility. Like if I search for Phonic, this is one I reported. So I tested a Phonic in Mac OS Big Sur version 11, and I didn't have any problems. I just tried one file, just tried a normal processing workflow, and it worked fine. So I reported that as compatible. I haven't tried multi-track. So far though, it seems like if I filter this to apps I have installed that have some issues, it's very few apps. So this seems to be a pretty smooth upgrade. I'm not sure I would recommend it for someone's primary machine yet.
Yeah.
But if you have a good backup of your primary machine, then you could try it.
That's impressive. For I wonder if there's a Windows version like that. Do you know that would check that up again? Because Microsoft's doing these crazy twice a year updates as well that are hard to keep track of. Daniel, do you know, is there a Windows version of that?
Roaring Apps does have Windows and iOS stuff on their website as well.
Okay.
Whether they have an app for Windows, I'm not sure.
Sure.
If you go to their website, they do. They have apps for Windows. If you go to download, I think the downloadable thing is only for Mac, or it might just be automatically detecting that I'm on a Mac.
Well,
but
it does say crowdsourced. It does say crowdsourced application compatibility for Mac OS, iOS, and Windows on their website.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that. I mean, there's big Windows updates going on right now. So they have not been as aggressive as they've been in the past as far as breaking things. But I haven't tested everything either. But that's happening on the Windows side right now too. I had some PCs reboot early in the week. Just reboot,
Right.
and you're like, I got things running on these, so it's Daniel, that's a great recommendation. I'll have to check that out on the Windows side.
That's all I had to share and talk about.
All right.
Thanks
For jumping in, friend.
You can find Daniel over at theaudacitytopodcast.com. Yeah, I'm checking out their website, Roaring Apps.
Yeah. It'll be something I'll have to check out in post show to see what I loved the layout of where it had the different versions across the top, and then because that would be, especially in the podcasting space, that would be handy to know, what kind of compatibility issues it's running into. If you can pick those apps and say, I want to kind of track these over time. Yeah,
it's one of those things where that could save. You think about the troubleshooting time that could eliminate. If you're like, I don't know what's going on, and all of a sudden you go to it's not compatible. That's why this isn't working. And then you can kind of just go, well, what's plan B? You never know. So interesting. But
sweet.
Yeah, well, I was surprised last night. My phone had updated. I have an iPhone, And it's a whole thing now about like, when do you want to go to bed? I will start putting your phone on do not disturb a half hour before you go to bed and all sorts of other stuff. I was like, well, that's kind of cool. I was surprised. I forget what it woke me up with a typical whatever my alarm is. And I forget I had one amp for a while where it would play this really happy, fun music, and it would start very, very quietly. All of a sudden be like, do, 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 and all of a sudden get louder and louder. But it was this super happy, cheery, like way of like waking up to sunshine kind of thing. But that was not the case. But yeah, so that was different. I haven't seen one. Oh, and the other thing is when I updated my phone, and I don't.
What phone do you have? Just
I have iPhone 6.
Okay. Oh, wow.
You know what? It's probably
you're on the last. By the way, with this update, I think you're on the last version of the updates you'll get from.
Let me see. What do I have?
You should be on 14 for the OS version.
David's iPhone.
Yeah.
Nope, it's an iPhone X. So I did upgrade. I had the 6 before.
Oh, so okay, good.
iPhone XS Max.
Yeah, you're good. Okay, good.
So
you got a while. You got a while.
When I updated the software, apparently apps that I didn't use a lot, it removed.
Yeah. Well, sort of. Yeah.
Yeah. Because all of a sudden I'd be like, hey, let's listen to something. It'd be like, hold on, got to reinstall that app. I'm like, that's odd. I don't remember deleting that, but okay. And so that happened.
Yeah. For efficiency, it keeps, it deletes them, but there's a record of it there. And if you need it, you click on it and it just reinstalls it. So it's kind of cool in the sense that if you haven't used it in a long time, there'll be a little cloud like by the app thing itself. There'll be kind of a cloud. But at one point it said, hey, do you want me, the phone, to remove the apps you're not currently using? I was like, sure.
Yeah.
And woof, away they went. So that's I think that's cool. Some people think that's not, but I think that's cool.
Well, Liquid is saying that sometimes Apple developers don't, depending on who your app is through.
Yeah.
And that is something that Bandrew brought up about the Shure MV7, that yes, you can control some of that on the actual mic, but some of it came with a companion app. And it's like, he said, the SM7B will work 30 years from now because you just plug it in. He goes, are we going to know in 30 years that Shure has kept up with that app so that, when we're on Windows 40 and, is it still going to work? And I was like, that's a good point. I was like, so sometimes this extra, like, look, it does this and that kind of thing. So
Liquid, he says it puts the apps in the cloud. So I think it keeps, I think the phone keeps your local data. So if you've worked with the app and there's data, it keeps that data local. Then it pushes to the cloud. All that means is they keep it, they keep it for you and deletes the app itself. Then if you need it, you click on it, it goes to the store, pulls it back down, reinstalls it for you. So if you're going to use it again, you're going to wait a few minutes for it to reinstall to get it in there. But it does if you have, if you're running out of storage on that. How much storage do you have on your phone, Dave? Do you know? Is your 64, 128? What are you, 32?
Yeah,
what did you get?
The middle one.
64?
I don't know, because usually I go through, let's see here. Where do you go to see
storage? So general, so settings, general storage, I think is the right progression there.
General software update, iPhone storage.
Yep, there you go.
64. So I went with the small one.
Okay. Well, that 64 for a lot of people, depending on how many videos and audio you take, Liquidy and her Instagram, she probably needs more than that. But
I did a good job of syncing things to Dropbox and then liking all my pictures. I keep a few, and half my pictures drives me nuts are screenshots of people's podcasts that I then send for Libsyn. I'm constantly taking, somebody's like, my show's not in Apple. And I'm like, yes, it is. Here it is. And then I send them a screenshot. So, that'll be.
I have a lot of screenshots too of, I do tech support or I help our customers at Gallup find things. And so, I'll be taking screenshots and making circles. Okay, it's right here, and then posting it to Facebook so they know where to get it. I post them to Google Photos, which actually had a change this week and no longer unlimited. They have some new rules coming in. So if you're using Google Photos to store your photos, you might want to go out to Google and read all the things, all the changes that are coming up. I think it's June 1 of 2021 where those go into effect. Not necessarily unlimited anymore for a lot of the ways. Depends on how you store it, but check it out. Let's see, what was I going? Oh, and they do a nice job of identifying those pictures that are just screenshots. And like, do you want to delete these?
Yeah.
Right. So that's kind of nice.
Yeah. Speaking of your phone, Kevin Castillo out in a Facebook group asked, anyone have Podbean? And it really doesn't matter who you have. I'm having an issue with iTunes updating my new podcast banner when I share it. It's on the iTunes app only, but when I share it, it's the pick is in the comments. So what I've seen two things with this week. One, when you update your artwork, make sure it meets Apple specs. It needs to be at least 1400 by 1400, and that does not mean 1400 by 1401. That is not, they're picky. 1400 by 1400, all the way up to 3000 by 3000. And the image file size, not the dimension, needs to be under 500 kilobytes. And I had somebody, they had it the right specs, but when they shared it and they had a screenshot, it was showing the old artwork. I went to my phone, found their show, found the same episode, shared it, and it was fine. So some of this might be a cache on your phone. I've seen this with Facebook, especially if you're sharing things on either a website or your phone. So in some cases, I don't know. I would try unsubscribing from your show and then resubscribing. That might clear that out, but I haven't seen that a little bit. So
I had a designer at work look at the artwork. You know, we have eight podcasts now. Mm-hmm. And she's like, I need to standardize all of these. We had they had been created at different times by her, but different times. And then she started looking at them all as a group. And she was like, yeah, these look they're just a little bit off from, the standard branding that we were trying to do with all of them. She's like, would it be okay if I just updated these? And well, to get a designer to do those kinds of things, sometimes I never get the hours. And the fact that she was asking, I'm like, yes, but the work that made for me to have to go in, update them we use Spreaker as a host. So pretty easy to go in, but I had to go into each podcast, bring the new album art in, and then change it on the Apple in the Google side, add those. Then really you kind of need to go. I had to check out on Spotify and Stitcher and TuneIn and I still haven't done all those yet to send. Like many of those don't. Stitcher and TuneIn, and for sure you have to do a weird email thing to get your stuff updated. That means I got to do it 7 times.
Yeah.
And I just like, I was like, I don't know. Maybe someday when I'm stuck because of COVID and I can't go anywhere, I'll go update these or whatever.
Yeah, TuneIn is one I'm going to be interested to see where they are in 5 years.
They're going to get bought.
You think?
Yeah, I think 2021 they're going to get bought by somebody. I think so. Yeah, bought and shut down, by the way.
Yeah, Bangs is saying holidays are coming up. Apple will be going on vacation soon, delaying podcast approval if you don't submit soon. Yeah, those dates are November 22nd through December 2nd, December 23rd through January 2nd. And according to Rob Walsh, who says it takes about a month not to get approved in Apple, but you can get approved in somewhere between 5 to 10 business days. But for those other apps that then pull from the back end of Apple, and again, not to just be in their directory, but to be searchable, he said, to be on the bright side or the good side, you want to really like plan like a month out. And he basically said, so if you want your show absolutely available January 2021, you need to submit your show basically tomorrow, the November 15th. He's like, because that will take, if they do the 5 business days, that will get you in before they go on the holiday. And so that whole 9 yards. Yeah, I've had a few people that are like, hey, I'm launching blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you might want to, and that's where one person's like, okay, I'm going to put up a trailer. And then just.
I find sometimes they're really fast and then sometimes they're really slow.
Yeah.
I
always tell people 5 to 10 business, and it's business days. That's the other one that people like, I submitted it on Saturday. And I'm like, that doesn't count.
We're starting a new podcast to Gallup that I had hoped to have submitted by now, and I didn't get it done. I have to re-record some intros and the outro and some other things. And so I know I'm going, and the goal is January, like the first week of January. And I know I'm coming up against these holiday season things. I'm just kind of hoping. And listen, it's not the end of the world. If I don't get it released the first week of January, no one's going to punch me in the face, right? So I'm going to be fine.
I had somebody this week contact me. They're like, should I release with one episode and then the following week put out 2 episodes, or should I just launch with 3 episodes? And there was just a part of me is like, just launch. Like, I really don't think, I understand that the more episodes you have, the more downloads, the quicker people can kind of get accustomed to you. But again, sometimes when I hear this word launch, I'm starting to throw up in my mouth just a little bit, because it's like they put all in. Look, you should put effort into your launch. Get everybody to know that you have a podcast out, but it's really like, that's just the beginning. Like, you just put the canoe in the water, you still got a lot of paddling to do. It's like, so don't get too hung up on that. And then speaking of that, there was another question we could talk about here. Wow, we are coming up on time. Speaking of that, 1:00 today, office hours for the awesome supporters, as well as the School of Podcasting. Jesse said, have you ever missed dropping a podcast episode for your set schedule? If so, did you explain to your audience the reason? How did you feel? Finally, what was the reason for missing an episode? And I just said, on my main show, I have not missed. I said, but on the other hand, I hear a lot of podcasts that start off with literally a 5-minute apology.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's just not the way to start.
Stop the madness. Just put it out. No, you got a handful of listeners who are paying attention. Send them an email. I'm late. Sorry. For everybody else, they don't care. They literally don't care.
I said, if you really feel so moved, put that at the end. Hey, if you noticed I missed last week, because I said, on one hand, it's good that you feel bad that you missed. I said, but again, like you said, nobody's going to punch you in the face.
Nobody cares.
And if somebody really cares, I reached out to Cliff Ravenscraft because somebody pointed out that he hadn't posted anything anywhere in like a month. And I just went on Facebook. I go, hey, Cliff, man, like, I haven't heard anything from you in a month. Like, you okay? And so I guess he just put out an episode that said, I'm okay, because he's doing a lot of Train with Cliff stuff. So, but, and then Kim says, I put out a thing on Facebook that this week wouldn't have a podcast, and she got 2 responses. Yeah. I don't know about you. I mean, I'm laughing because I've been listening to audiobooks. I'm so far behind on listening to podcasts because I spent 7 hours listening to Rob Halford's, book, which was interesting. Going for crunchy coffee this morning.
Well, this is related to the podcast. So, typically I do this. This is my wife. She just posted that to the family chat in Facebook. Okay. And I was like, what? Oh, that's the lid to this. Like, that's supposed to go when I brew the coffee. Yeah. That's supposed to go on top of that so that the water drips down on it and it drips through. Well, this morning I'd left it off. So I went straight grounds this morning. No wonder I'm so wired. Like, I'm just going with the chewy coffee. It actually doesn't taste any different. So, but isn't that hilarious? Like, I found out about that on Facebook Messenger this morning in our family chat. So there you go. Sometimes you forget the lid.
Yeah.
Extra fiber, says Gary.
Coach Dave says, I got run over by the 2020 truck and people understand this year. Yeah, that's it.
No, I don't think anybody cares, just to be honest.
Yeah. Dan says, I changed my schedule from consistently posting every Monday to literally whenever there is no schedule.
Yeah. I post on the weekends. I used to try to get it by this time on Saturdays. I wanted to have it posted by the time Ask the Podcast Coach started. And it was just too much. There's too many things going on. And I'm like, sometime this weekend. And then every once in a while it's Monday. No one has ever complained. Yeah. They're just like, I don't have that kind of audience.
I'm dying to know, if we are quiet, can you hear the lawnmower?
No.
Okay. Yay, no. Noise gate. Because only my neighbor, who's 400 years old, is mowing his lawn.
Isn't it cold out there?
It is. It is 42 degrees out. And I'm like, and the only thing I can think of is maybe he's mowing up leaves.
Probably. Yeah, I'm sure he's getting the leaves up.
Is this another thing you want on the screen? I see your screen change.
Oh, hold on. No. Don't show that. Okay. Now you can. No, it's okay. It was just the other. I just had gone back to Facebook.
Look, I changed to publishing on Wednesdays so I could edit on Mondays instead of the weekend. Yeah. And I always say, if you can, let people know. Like, I'm getting ready to rebrand more podcast money to profit from your podcast because, well, I've done a rebrand. So I'm going to put on an episode that says, hey, you're going to see the artwork change next week. Don't worry about it. Everything's fine. You're good to go. Whole 9 yards. So, did you by any chance it's time for an awkward moment with Jim.
Oh, nice. Aren't they all awkward?
Have you had a chance to read my book?
I have not.
Okay, that's all right. I was going to ask you what you thought of it. So,
I went through it and set it on it's on my shelf right there. And no, I haven't spent any time with it. Sorry to be awkward on that.
Well, I mean, it's the holidays almost. So
I'm not a big. Hold on, let me grab it. I'm not a big book reader. Just to be 100% honest. I mean, I bought this to support you. I want to make sure that you do. We talk a lot. While you were writing this, we talked a lot about a lot of the things that are in here. So, sorry.
No, it's fine. I have probably 3 books because now I will listen to books, even though I just checked. I have 358 episodes now of podcasts to listen to. So I will be going through nope to a lot of that. But books I have one book about getting to the point. It's something like say it.
Buy it.
I forget what it's something like say the most with 1 sentence or something like that. And it's a tiny little book and it got highly recommended. And I have not even cracked it on my Kindle. I don't even know if it's on my Kindle. I was just like, yeah, I'll read that later. And then it's like, you never get to. I have a couple audiobooks that I haven't even cracked yet. So the joys of that. So, but anyway, so yeah, when
I have access to the Dave Jackson every week, I don't need a book.
I don't need the book.
I don't need a book. I have the Dave Jackson. So I'm pretty privileged. I'll just admit that I'm pretty privileged, but great. Listen, I applaud you. I'm not disciplined enough to ever even get one of these out. Like there's a lot of work. I'm not going to ever write a book. It's just not ever going to happen. I don't want to. I have no aspirations to do it. So I'm always proud of people who do, because it's a big deal, but that's just not going to be me.
And Liquid says, yes, please leave a review for Dave's books. Amazon pushes books that have reviews. So if you bought the book and reviewed it, and I just double checked. Yeah. SOP office hours / awesome supporters 1 to 2:30 today. So I'll be sending that link.
2:30 Eastern.
Eastern. Yes. So if you want to stop in and ask more questions,
just so folks know,
I will be there. So, but thanks as always for another fun Saturday morning.
Yeah. See you next.
And next week, I should have something back here. The folks from Automoot contacted me and said, we want to send you some stuff. And I was like, okay, I like free stuff. So,
cool. Well, that's great if they'll do that. That's pretty awesome.
Yeah. So
we don't, with the holiday schedule coming up, so Thanksgiving doesn't affect us. We're still doing it. And then Christmas the 26th is a Saturday. Do you think we'll podcast the 26th and the 2nd?
I wouldn't have a problem with it. It's up to you.
Yeah,
do you want to take a break?
I'm in if we want to do it. I don't.
Yeah.
I feel like we're Rob and Todd talking about our schedule on the show. Those guys.
There was an episode, I forget what it was, but they and granted it's live, so they're looking like they're doing their research on the air. And I was like, if I hear Todd go, never edit, I've done 1,400 episodes, haven't edited a single one. I'm like, and maybe you should. There are times when I'm like, really?
I know. They talk about it up front. This is at the very end of a very long show. But okay, so we'll plan all the way through December. No dates off.
Yeah.
So
all right, cool.
All right, Dave. Have a good weekend. Take care. See you guys.
Bye-bye.